Hey guys, welcome back to our channel. My name is Crystal and this is Letters to Baby Chavez. In this week's episode, we are going to talk about how we chose our RE, which is our reproductive endocrinologist, also known as our specialist. How are you?
Well, I'm trying to hang in there. How about you guys?
Same
here.
I'm on a lunch break. We're working from home, so it's nice.
Live around somewhere right now.
Awesome.
So I've been through your records and everything. Does it look like you got any treatment of any kind? Is that right?
That's right.
What's going on with your menstrual cycles?
So they are completely thrown off. So since the surgery, I did have a period last week that came through. But before that period, and it was a full 7-day period, before that period, my last menstrual cycle was back in November of 2019.
Okay. So ovulation is part of the problem as well.
Yeah,
And then you just have one fallopian tube.
that's right.
Right.
Okay. Has anybody been through the semen analysis that you did back in, I guess this was 2017?
No. So this is a really great topic that we are touching on this week because there's so much insight that we've learned over the course of trying to conceive, and I think it's going to be very beneficial to those who are looking and wanting to interview different types of specialists, because not all of them are made the same, and we really wanted to make sure that we trusted ours and we liked ours, especially because, well, none of this is being covered by insurance. So we are paying out of pocket for most of our procedures, and with that being said, we wanted a RE that we trusted. So what better way than to interview them ourselves? So let's dive in. All right, our first set of how to determine what type of RE we wanted to go with was we put out a list of questions that would help us determine whether they were right for us. So here are some questions that we got from different types of REs that we spoke with, that we kind of just compiled and started asking all of them during the interview process. So I'm gonna bring out my trusty little phone and go through some of the questions. So here is number one. What is my diagnosis, and how did this condition specifically interfere with infertility? Number two, if the reason for my infertility is unclear, what diagnostic testing do you recommend? What is the likelihood that each of these tests will establish a diagnosis? And are there any risks associated with any of these testings? Number three, what type of treatment would you recommend for us to try? Does this treatment involve surgery, medications, or both? What are the risks of each treatment? 4, how often does this treatment result in pregnancy? Be sure to determine whether your doctor is talking about pregnancy rates or live birth rates when discussing specific treatments, so you can adequately compare. Example, a treatment may have a 30% rate per cycle, but only a 25% rate of live birth rates due to early miscarriage. 5, are less invasive or more conservative treatments available? How do these compare? Which would you recommend in terms of risk and success rates? 6, how many cycles of treatments would you recommend before doing another option? Do you recommend skipping a menstrual cycle between treatment cycles? And last but not least, are there any lifestyle modifications that might help the condition and increase my chances of getting pregnant? Those are some of the questions that we had asked our REs, and we had interviewed 3 particular REs that we narrowed down in the Southern California region that came with the highest recommendations from friends, family members, coworkers, and just people going through the TTC community and trying to conceive. So these doctors were well versed in what they do. And these doctors are also the ones that we fully trusted to get us to where we needed to be. So I'm going to just name them as Dr. A, Dr. B, and Dr. C, and give you guys the locations of them just to avoid any type of mishap or miscommunication. And again, this is based upon what we were looking for and the importance of how we chose the doctor of choice. So one thing that was really important before we dive into the doctors is our connection with the doctor. I thought that by going to an RE, I needed to feel 100% connected to this doctor. I didn't want any of my questions to feel dumbed down or stupid. I didn't want a doctor with bad bedside manner, but I also wanted him to be very real, straightforward, straight to the point, but in a sense that he still embraced that human side of things, and he still brought that element of trust and good behavior. So that was important to me. Another thing that was also important was the fact that I didn't want to feel like another number. I wanted to feel as if though this doctor was taking my time and valuing my time, and also answering the questions that needed to be answered without making me feel rushed or pressured to get out. So I really wanted to ensure that that was happening. And number 3, I also wanted to make sure that we trusted our doctor. I wanted to go based off of reviews. I wanted to go based off of, success rates. And I will go ahead and link down below some of the tools that we use to help narrow that down, that process, because that's important. And also, last but certainly not least, is the staff. Because even though the doctors are the ones doing our procedures, the staff and his nurses are the ones that we are working with closely, hand in hand, almost daily. And if there was a lack in communication, or there was a lack in energy, or there was just a lot of, back and forth hoorah that just didn't feel right, we weren't going with that. And, that's important. That's very, very important for people to understand, is that even though you are choosing your doctor, you're also choosing the staff behind the doctor, behind the physician, because a lot of people think that it's just you and the doctor. And yes, that's true to a certain extent, but most clinics nowadays have a nurse, right? An assigned nurse to that specific doctor. And that nurse is going to be the one that you are communicating with, and that you are opening up to, that you are emailing, that you are waiting for callbacks and test results. And in the world of infertility, we all know it's a huge waiting game. And in order for that process to be a lot smoother, we needed to have a team of professionals, his nurses, his billing department, all of that in place to make this so much more sound, so much more smooth, if that makes sense. So those were the main important factors that determined which doctor we were going to choose. So let's dive in. The doctors. We interviewed 3 REs all throughout the Southern California area. And the first doctor that we interviewed was highly recommended and the most expensive out of the 3. We will call him Dr. A. Dr. A was located in Newport Beach, California. Beautiful office, and we did a Zoom interview with him. Lasted about 30 minutes, I would say. The doctor really took charge. Dr. A took charge of the entire interview process. I mean, he went through all of our questions without even knowing that we were asking them. So Dr. A did a great job in really narrowing down all of our questions without us even needing to ask them. Now, he took charge and he wanted to do genetic testing right away. He sent out a kit. He wanted to just get the ball rolling, which I can respect because he was aggressive, and he had such amazing feedback. I mean, from the reviews to, you know, his stats, but he also came with a price point. So he was extremely expensive, and that's something that we had to keep in mind because, well, it was really, really out of pocket, 100%, all of the procedures, and we needed to also keep that in mind. So overall, the doctor was very knowledgeable. Dr. A had amazing reviews, and he was just the most expensive physician that we had interviewed. So moving on to Dr. B. Dr. B was also located in the beautiful county of Orange County, California. And the funny thing with him is he was actually our first RE we had ever gone to. He was part of the board of directors at our hospital in Orange County, and he actually ended up opening up his own practice. So in the midst of when Jesus and I decided to take a break, he decided to open up his brand new beautiful office, and we actually saw an ad for him on Google, and it was like, wow, this is really crazy that he ended up, because we were, you know, trying to search high and low for this guy, and turns out that he actually ended up opening up his own practice. So this is Dr. B. Dr. B, again, very familiar, great bedside manner, extremely friendly. I mean, he has a wealth of knowledge, and he's a straight shooter. So Dr. B did not spend a whole lot of time with the fluff. I mean, as nice as he was also very direct, and that's what we wanted. We wanted a good balance between both. We wanted somebody a tad bit cocky, but also a tad bit sweet, and he delivered both very well. Straight shooter. There's nothing to hint around, you know. And the one good thing is that he came from my old hospital, so he knew how I can pull up, you know, medical records. He knew how I could log in, and he was versed on both ends of the spectrum. My current hospital as well as his own private practice. He had my medical records already, as he did my first surgery to nip my fallopian tube. So we had that relationship, and it had been 2 years after the fact, but we were able to reconnect, ask the questions that we had. That interview process took about an hour. Okay. He also offered additional assistance, such as stress management. He offered acupuncturist. He offered therapy. He offered group health sessions to manage your weight, and just an outlet of different types of resources to help aid us through, you know, this ongoing battle with infertility. And sometimes additional resources are much needed to help us get to a nice, healthy, balanced mental health stage in our journey. So I definitely appreciated a lot of what his package offered. He had a wealth of resources and a community behind him who was supporting him in his brand new venture of opening up his own office. His team and his nurses were great. The follow through was awesome. And considering I would have all of his attention, because he didn't have that many patients in comparison to the other two doctors, kind of was a selling point for me. So that was Dr. B. So last but not least is Dr. C, located in Pasadena, California. And he was referred by a couple of my friends on Instagram, some new TTC sisters that I had befriended on Instagram, and just he was very well known in the Southern California area, and he's a pillar in his community, meaning he helped start that first set of doctors within that practice in Pasadena. So he's a pillar. He's been there and done that. He's had great reviews. And the one thing I really enjoyed about him is his staff. I loved his nurse. I loved the billing department. I loved every interaction I've ever had with him. was awesome. Dr. C helped kind of paint the perspective of good health, and he actually has a health coach, which is his wife, aid him in the process of healthy living. So she's like a health coach, or she does that on the side, and we didn't sign up for her services as I'm already going through my own set of, health goals with a different health coach, but that's besides the point. He talked about the importance of living a healthy, balanced lifestyle and helping aid into conceiving. So I thought that was really cool that he brought that up before we could even ask him that. He took charge of the conversation, and honestly, the conversation was so smooth. I mean, it was so lighthearted. He's so soft-spoken. It was like speaking to a friend that I hadn't seen in such a long time. Like, we just started up exactly where we left off. Great bedside manner. I mean, he just had so much positivity, and he had so much insight, and he had, our medical records down to a science. Like, a lot of these doctors kind of went through it as we were going through it. He already knew, oh, you've had this back in 2019. Oh, you had this prior to, which means your levels should be that. Checking here, your levels are that. Like, he was already on top of it before we could even say on top of it. Like, I just was so taken back and blown away by his professionalism, his expertise, his mannerisms, and the feeling of our connection when we were going through that. Hence, Jesus was in these interviews with me the entire time. We wrapped up our interview with him just feeling so torn because we loved them all. I mean, it was so hard, and I feel lucky that we chose the top 3 physicians, the top 3 REs in Southern California, to interview. And they were all great and all so different from one another that it made it so difficult to choose. So we narrowed it down after about, I would say, a week. We took an additional week to kind of talk about each one, kind of narrow down each one. I have a cousin who I'm extremely close to. I call her like my life coach because she helps me out tremendously on every single big decision that I'm stuck on, whether it's professional or, scholastically or, just life. And she's like a sister. She's a big sister that I've always wanted. I'm an only child, so it's nice to have that kind of connection and camaraderie with family, and I'm so blessed to have her in my life. So, Jesus and I went back and forth for a whole week, and he's like, it's up to you. At the end of the day, this is your decision. This is your ultimate say. So whatever you decide, wherever you decide to go, I'm following. And I love that about my husband, and I love how supportive he is when it comes to that. But I needed somebody to help me execute each one. So my life coach, my cousin, actually helped me decipher, right? We broke down each and every RE that we met with, and we took the pros and the cons of each, and we actually narrowed down the final choice, and it was based off of our communication with his staff, the initial communication with him, how well versed he is in what I have going on, PCOS. I'm a right tubeless warrior who's missing my right fallopian tube. He's managed that. He's very, very versed in the procedural IUI as well as IVF. He's had tremendous success rates with women within my age group, as well as women who are suffering with similar things such as PCOS, as well as hydrocephalic, which is the missing fallopian tube, and just balancing out hormonal causes. In addition to that, he has a staff behind him, 4 other REs within his office who can jump in times where he has a medical emergency or he has to be away from the office, and instead of canceling treatment, he's going to send it back up that he 100% trusts. And the other two didn't really have that, or they did, but they didn't bring that up. So, I mean, we ended up choosing Dr. C, which is a doctor in Pasadena, and we could not be more pleased. We are actually so honored and so humbled and so blessed within the process of our IUI cycle that we are just hoping, big hopeful thoughts. So we're praying every night, for a successful turnout. But that is our journey, and this is what it took to help determine which physician that we were going to go with. And I'm glad we took our time with it, because it's important. This decision is not just picking out a pair of shoes and being able to return it. Like, this is a not lifelong, but this is a commitment through a very important process. And you gotta trust who you go with. And we're lucky enough and fortunate enough to be able to make those decisions and interview our RE. But I hope you guys enjoyed. Make sure to like, subscribe, and make sure to follow. I'm linking everything below. And as always, stay well, stay safe, and it was great speaking with you guys. Until we talk again. Bye, guys.